Hello there, welcome to Proper Unskimmed again. Today's guest is Dr Colin Penny, and he's a local historian of Lancashire where I live. Welcome, Colin. How are you?
Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, well, thank you very much for coming on. I really appreciate it. I've been looking forward to talking to you. We've been talking for a few weeks now via emails, haven't we?
Yeah.
We finally got to sit down, which is great. I'm really pleased. Um, Colin's written a few books, haven't you? One was
Yeah,
pretty recent.
yeah, a couple about the castle,
Yeah, yeah,
the history of the of Lancaster Castle, and history of Lancaster Castle for the young and curious, which is
yeah.
for the children's version of that
Hmm.
book. I've written some written articles, one
Yeah,
about the historic graffiti at the castle as well.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. I'd love to ask you about that a little bit later on as well, if that's all right.
sure.
It's intriguing. Um, One thing for me, where I live in Lancashire, I'm not too far away from Pendle Hill. I can see it when I'm walking my dog, and of course that's related to the Pendle Witch trials. Which was it? Did the trial occur at Lancaster Castle as well,
Yeah,
or is it?
the
Yeah. So
trials
the
were
whole thing.
in August 1612.
Yeah,
And the Pendle Witches, they're the most well known of those trials, but they weren't
yeah,
the only trial.
yeah,
They were tried alongside um, Salisbury witches, who were
yeah.
nowhere near as well known, and also a woman called Isabel Roby, who came from Windle
Right.
near St Helens. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. So, so that all happened at the same time.
yeah,
All
yeah.
that
Same,
process happened at
same,
the same time.
same assizes, same set of trials. Yeah,
Uh, One thing I noticed, were they all women?
no,
There's a lot of people. Most were women, I guess, over the whole thing, but men
yeah.
were also
There's
tied into it, weren't they?
yeah. There's a in terms of European witchcraft
Yeah,
trials, it's difficult. You can't be, exactly accurate, but it's estimated that about a third of the
yeah,
people who were found guilty and executed for witchcraft were men. And in
yeah,
the Pendle Witch case, two men
yeah,
were
yeah,
ultimately hanged. Yeah,
yeah. So they were hanged as well then.
yeah.
When were people still being burned at the stake at that time
They
for
were, but
witchcraft?
not in England for witchcraft.
Right,
Um,
right.
in Scotland, those found guilty of witchcraft were burned, and in
Yeah,
continental Europe they were burned. But in England, they were always hanged.
right.
We were the only country in Europe not to burn witches. We did burn
Yeah,
people,
but
but
not
it
witches.
tended to be after case, religious heresy.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
Catholics burn Protestants and Protestants burn Catholics.
yeah. Of course.
People found guilty of petty treason were
Yeah,
burned at the stake, but it was quite a rare punishment here. Hanging
yeah. The
tended
most
to be
common.
the punishment for most capital
Yeah.
offences.
Can I just ask you about the sort of the time as things flipped over because really in the past before the kind of witch epidemic, if you will, it was the cunning woman, wasn't it, who was actually quite an important part of a village or town, if I'm right.
Yeah, I mean, witchcraft in England wasn't a felony
No.
before 1603. Prior to that, if a person was found guilty of witchcraft, it was treated more as a misdemeanor. So
Yeah.
they'd be put in the stocks or put in the scold's bridle. I don't know if you're familiar
Yeah.
with that. This kind
Oh
of
no. No.
cage that went over the head with a va or ha hong, so they couldn't speak.
All right.
Yeah, gossips were put in it too, and people who
Oh really?
had committed petty offences, invariably women,
Yeah.
and then they'd be taken down to the market square and with a sign around their neck while they were in it, and people
Yeah.
would call them names or whatever. But
Yeah.
and ducking was another one. But
Yeah.
James the First, King James the First, was the king who, when he became king in 1603, one of the first things he did when he was king of England was pass the Witchcraft Act,
Yeah.
which made witchcraft no longer just a misdemeanor, but a felony punishable by death, because James
Yeah.
was paranoid about witchcraft. Before he was King of England, he was James the Sixth of Scotland.
All right.
And he became obsessed with witchcraft because he believed that he had been the target, both him and his wife, Anne of Denmark, had been the target of an attempted assassination, if you like, through witchcraft very early on in his reign. Essentially, Anne of Denmark was travelling from Denmark by boat with a fleet. And the fleet got hit by a terrible storm. The ships got scattered. People thought they were going to die. They didn't die. They made it to Norway. And instead of getting married in Scotland, which was the plan, James travelled to Norway to meet it. And they got married in Oslo.
Yeah.
Then they went to Denmark because they were fairly close. He thought it would be polite to visit the in-laws. So they went to Denmark, and then they travelled back together to Scotland. And wouldn't you know it, on the way back, the ship got hit by a terrible storm.
Yeah.
And to cut a long story short, he became convinced that those weren't ordinary storms, that they'd been conjured up by witches trying to kill him and his bride. It can't just be the weather, can it? Investigation.
Must be a witch.
A number of people were in Scotland burned at the stake.
Right.
For that. And so after that, he became absolutely paranoid. He read everything he could possibly get his hands on about witchcraft. He was very intelligent. He knew a number of languages. He was very well read, so he could read books and articles from other countries in other languages all about witchcraft. And basically, he published his own book, huge, thick thing called Demonology. Yeah. Everything you could possibly want to know about witchcraft. He published that in 1596 when he was James VI of Scotland.
Yeah.
And that had to be in the possession of every judge, every magistrate, and when faced with witchcraft accusations, they were supposed to refer to that.
Oh, so that was like mandatory.
He considered himself to be the expert. And of course, when he became James I of England, he imported it. He brought it with him. So he then insisted that England do the same. So Demonology was republished and spread, throughout all the courts in England, passed the Witchcraft Act, making witchcraft a felony. And so, not surprisingly, from that point on, you get an upsurge in witchcraft trials, because if the king is interested in something, or if the king has an obsession or a mania, people will latch on to that. That's how do you get yourself noticed? How do you please the king? Do something that that he'll notice. Witchcraft.
Yeah. Pick something that he's obsessed with, and he'll. So that's not too far away, is it, from when the Pendle Witch trial started? Of course, linked into other people from across the county as well. Was it? I think I read before that Lancashire had kind of a bad reputation at the time for rebellion and not really following suit.
Lancashire, what you've got to bear in mind is, the early 17th century. It's pre-industrial revolution. Yeah. So Lancashire, okay, there were settlements, but there was nothing like the big towns and cities that there are now, or that existed down south. So it was very wild. It was considered wild. It was very difficult to maintain law and order in Lancashire. The local gentry were constantly fighting, having feuds, against one another, land robbing one from the other and stealing each other's cattle and sheep and all that. And it was very difficult to stop it, particularly as, of course, the gentry are the people that the authorities are drawn from, the magistrates and the high sheriffs, and they're from the gentry. So a lot of them were doing it themselves. So, well, there's that element. And it was also, just to give you an idea, it was very difficult to suppress Catholicism in Lancashire,
Right. Yeah.
because it was difficult to maintain law and order. It was
Yeah.
difficult to apprehend Catholic priests. Of course, being a Catholic priest in England at that time, in the under Elizabeth I and later under James, it was a capital offence.
Yeah.
A Catholic priest found would be executed, tried, executed in the most horrendous way. Priests were considered guilty of high treason. The punishment for high treason was to be hung, drawn, and quartered. And
Wow.
it's no surprise. It's no coincidence that the trials of the Lancashire Witches fall right in the middle of another set of trials in Lancashire,
Right.
which
Okay.
were those
Yeah.
of the Lancashire Martyrs. The
Right.
Lancashire Martyrs were 15 Catholic men who were tried between 1584 and 1646 on charges of high treason.
Right.
Most of them were Catholic priests. Some of them were Catholic laymen who helped them, hid them,
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
And they were tried at Lancaster Castle. They were all found guilty and they were all executed. The priests were hung, drawn, and quartered. The laymen were hanged. And 1612 falls right in the middle of that.
Yeah.
And if you look at some of the facets of certainly the Pendle Witch trial, they're full of Catholic references. So, for example,
All right.
some of the spells that they're supposed to have cast, they're full of Ave Marias. They're full of Paternosters, and this kind of barbarized Catholic liturgy almost in them. And one of the accused, who was ultimately hanged, was called Alice Nutter.
Yeah.
She came from Rough Lee. And she, I mean, we'll get on to how the trials, what prompted the trials in a bit, I suppose. But she's on a completely different social level to all
Right.
the others, because
Yeah.
they were all beggars. They were beggars. They were scraping a living. She was the wife of a yeoman farmer. She just
All right.
isn't on the same level socially. What's she doing there with
Yeah.
these in this group? But Alice Nutter was a Catholic. There's no doubt about that, because she was
Yeah.
related to two Catholic priests, both of whom were martyred.
Yeah.
Robert Nutter in 1600 at Lancaster Castle.
Right.
So there's no doubt whatsoever that she's a Catholic, and some people argue that she was never really involved in it, but that she was framed, if you like, as it was a way of getting rid of a very prominent and possibly troublesome Catholic woman.
It's interesting that
there
it
are
kind
other
of sends a
arguments
message,
as well
doesn't
that
it?
you can, but which we'll come to, that you can argue are also suggest a Catholic element to all of this, and certainly the Salisbury Witches, there's definitely a Catholic element to that.
Yeah.
Tried at the same time. So
Yeah.
yeah. So in terms of Lancashire, it was wild, it was lawless, it was considered a hotbed of Catholicism.
Yeah.
So it was viewed with a degree of suspicion
Yeah.
by those at the court and around the king,
Yeah.
at
Something
the
to be
time.
suppressed and controlled eventually. It's almost like clever prosecution, isn't it? Like you said, bringing in the Catholic element to everything into the trial, and the wording, and then pulling somebody who is a Catholic in to the witch side of things. It's almost reminiscent of something that you see in a drama series now, when you see a clever prosecutor finding ways to convince who they need to convince at the time.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I think you can. I mean, there were a lot of Catholics in Lancashire still are.
Yeah.
And then again, we'll get on to this, but if you look at a lot of what they were accused of, particularly a meeting that occurred, you can definitely see, and I'm not so sure, witchcraft, or is it something else that they're kind of making into something that it wasn't.
Yeah. yeah. Quite likely, I imagine.
Yeah.
So speaking of feuding families and things like that, that was part of. There were two families feuding at the time, weren't there? Which is how things are kind of muddled together a little bit. You correct me if I'm wrong on this. So you've got young Janet, haven't you, who's out begging?
Alison.
Oh, is it Alison?
Janet comes into it, but Janet's a different character. So it began with a meeting, if you like, on a road between two people.
Yeah.
One was called Alison. She was a beggar. She was begging on a road in Trawden Forest. And a peddler comes down the road, and she asks him if he could give us some pins. Now, there are differing versions of what happened next, but one is he said, have you got any money? And she said, no. And he said, well, I'm not giving you any pins then. Or there's another version where he simply says, pins, I can't be bothered. I've got to unpack everything, And that doesn't make any sense because pins at that time were really expensive because they were all handmade. So it would have been worth his while if she could have bought them.
If she had money,
But she's begging. The chances are she probably said, can you give me them? And he said no. And he then walked off. She did what probably 95% of beggars did at the time. She cursed her mark.
Yeah.
Almost standard practice. He walks off. She's not giving him anything. And though, she cursed him. The idea being that he would turn around and say, oh, don't do that. Here, have some pins,
Yeah. Right. I see.
What we're told in the later the trial transcript is that her familiar appeared in the form of
this is like
a black
an
dog.
animal. Yeah.
And I'm paraphrasing here, but basically said that wasn't very nice, and she said no, it wasn't, and he said, would you like something to be done about that? And she said, well, what can be done? And he said, I can lame him. And she said, yes, do that thing. And then the next thing you know, he falls over and looked like he was going to die. In all likelihood, she just cursed him,
Yeah.
It's bad timing. Maybe the reason he had no patience with her because he wasn't feeling very well in the first place. We'll never know,
Yeah.
Right at that moment, when she cursed him, he fell over. He didn't die. His symptoms, he became paralysed on one side of his body and he couldn't speak.
So we know now he's had a stroke, hasn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But of course, in 1612, without the medical knowledge that we've got, what possible reason could there be? 1 minute, you're okay. Next minute, you can't walk and talk.
Yeah.
We should know nothing about this because Alison legged it. She got out of there and she ran away. Yeah. He was left. There were no witnesses. Again, there are two versions. He either got himself or was helped to a local inn, a pub, where they put him in bed and they sent for his son, Abraham. Now, bearing in mind, he can't walk and talk.
Yeah.
So how did they know who his son is?
Right.
He must have been there before.
Yeah. Got you.
Yeah. So that introduces. I always find that interesting because if they know who he is, you see, peddlers then and now, traveling salesmen, if you like, work a patch.
Yeah.
They might be, I don't know, in Accrington on a Tuesday. They might be in Burnley on a Friday. They tend to follow the market traders, whatever. Throughout time, they work a patch. He won't be any different.
Yeah.
So it's probably not the first time he's ever walked down that road.
Yeah.
The other thing is beggars tend to have a patch. They tend to, work certain places where they know
Yeah.
people are going to pass or
Yeah.
whatever. So in all likelihood, Alison had probably been on that road before,
Yeah. Yeah.
which begs the question, and there's no way of answering it, was this the
No.
first time they met?
Yeah. You never know, do you?
Because if it wasn't, that introduces a really interesting question. Well, two actually. When he was passing by, had she never asked him for anything before? Just let him go? Or had she always gone up to him and asked him for something?
Yeah. Yeah.
And if previously he had always said, "Oh, Pins, yeah, here you go."
Yeah.
It
Well, today's
seems
gone,
a
I'm
bit
sick of you.
tight
Go on. Go
on
on.
this one occasion when he didn't to curse him.
Yeah.
If you go the other way and said he never gave her anything, he'd always said, "Get lost,"
Yeah.
then in all likelihood she'd cursed him every time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And of course it had never worked before,
No. No.
you know. So
This time.
I always find that interesting. There's no way of knowing, but certainly
No.
the pub knew where to send for his son. And he couldn't have told
Yeah.
them because he can't talk.
No.
So they must have known who he was and they must have known where he came from.
Yeah. Yeah. Clearly.
Anyway,
Yeah.
the son arrives, Abraham, sees his father. He's obviously very upset. And Alison should have stayed away, but she couldn't. It was bothering her.
Yeah.
This is kind of a sign of her humanity, I think, because
Yeah.
she kind of hovered around and was asking about him. And in the end, she insisted on going in and seeing him. Now, by this time, John Law had recovered a little bit,
Yeah.
that sometimes happens, And she went in, she saw the state he was in, and she kind of threw herself down and apologised almost,
Yeah.
of
She fully
what
thinks that
happened
she's
and
done
all
that, doesn't she?
Yeah. And John Law forgave her.
Right.
His son, of course, he's very upset at the state his dad's in. He didn't. And he reported her to the magistrate, Roger Noel, who lived at Reed Hall. Now, Roger Noel, in these, in the stories, the traditional accounts, if you like, he tends to get a really bad press because he's the man who instigated the prosecutions.
Yeah.
Investigated it, if you like. There were other people involved, but he's usually seen correctly as the main player.
Yeah.
And he's usually cast in the role of almost an obsessive witch hunter,
Right.
which cannot be true. And you can throw that out the window easily because if you go down the road that he was an obsessive witch hunter, and he had been involved in another witchcraft trial in the late 16th century.
But that's not obsessive, is it, like you
1596, I
said?
think it was, 1596,
Yeah.
where a man was hanged for witchcraft.
Right.
But from there to that's 16 years, and there's nothing in between,
Yeah.
But not only that, in 1610, so 2 years before these trials, 1610, he was the High Sheriff of Lancashire,
Right.
which was an annual appointment given to the gentry. That put him in charge of law and order and juries for courts.
Yeah.
If he was an obsessive witch hunter, you would expect huge numbers of witchcraft trials in 1610, because at that day and that year, he had everything at his fingertips.
That's his opportunity, isn't it?
To conduct a county-wide persecution. He could do what he's like, and he could pack the juries in the courts with people he knew would pass the right verdict.
Yeah, yeah.
Are there any witchcraft trials in 1610? Not one.
Really?
Therefore, he can't be.
No.
Doesn't make sense.
Then you can make things happen, can't you, as much as you want in that role.
And if you actually look at it, a lot of these stories actually come from novels. Because in the Victorian period, there were some very popular novels about the Lancashire Witches. In fact, there's one by Harrison Ainsworth called The Lancashire Witches. Published in the mid-19th century. It's never been out of print since the day it was published.
No way.
Hugely successful. It's a great novel. It's really good. If you haven't read it, read it. It's brilliant.
Yeah.
But what Harrison Ainsworth did was he took what facts there were and made a novel.
Yeah.
By introducing fictional stories to pad it out into a novel, to make it an exciting novel. So, of course, Roger Noel is cast as the bad guy.
Right.
He's seen as engineering the prosecutions of, for example, Alice Nutter, so he'd get hold of her land. That's not true. It's in the novel.
Got you. Yeah.
But the problem is that those novels were so successful that those stories became well known, and
Becomes a true narrative.
Yeah, the line between fact and fiction has become very blurred, and part of the fiction has found its way into like the popular view of what really happened.
Yeah.
And he's part of that. This whole thing of him being an obsessive isn't true. And in 1612, he doesn't go looking for it. It comes to him.
Yeah.
So Abraham knocks on his door and says, "My father's been bewitched."
Yeah.
He's a justice of the peace. He's a magistrate. It's his job to investigate it.
So what doing his job in it?
He's only doing his job,
Yeah.
However, that's not to say, given what we know about the king, that he's obsessed by witches, that people like Roger Noel won't think, well, this is a bit of a gift.
Yeah.
It's not to say they won't run with it and make something much bigger out of it than it actually was. But that's a different thing to calling someone obsessed by witches. That's simply an opportunistic person who is exploiting a situation for their own benefit.
The king's obsessed with witches. Here's my chance to make a name for myself.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, I got you.
So that's kind of how the whole thing began and kicked off. And then Roger Noel, because he saw an advantage, investigates it, and he interviews Alison. He interviews members of her family. Now, obviously, we're cutting a long story short here, but they realised fairly quickly, probably, that they were in a bother. This is quite serious. What they're being accused of, and so they try to throw the heat off themselves. And one way they felt they could do that was basically, and again, this is paraphrasing, saying, well, we're not witches, but we can tell you people who are. And they pointed the finger at another family, who they'd been, as you said, who they'd been feuding with for ages. And it was a family headed up by Anne Whittle, who was known as Old Chattocks. There are various opinions as to what that meant, but Old Chatterbox seems to be the favourite. And it was actually not because she was constantly talking, but because her mouth was constantly moving. She had basically, I don't know what you would call it, but her mouth just constantly moved.
Right.
Her lower lip, probably. Which made it look like she was speaking, but wasn't,
Right, got you,
And it could have been, the onset of Parkinson's. There's a whole
Fair point,
list of things that could have been indicative of. But
of course.
Either way, her mouth moved. And that's why she got that nickname, allegedly.
Right.
And so, of course, what happens is they're arrested and they're questioned and they make counter-accusations back. And at that point, all Roger Noel has to really do is stand back and let them get on with it. He also interviewed people, interviewed witnesses. And these families weren't popular in the community, I mean. They were probably seen as nuisances, because they were aggressive. Beggars cursing somebody after, that's quite aggressive. So they probably weren't popular, and there were probably people in the community who were only too happy to help, And they were dabbling. There's no question they were dabbling in what would be called the occult, with charms. They were definitely producing charms for people. When a person had, and it would be something they encouraged, because both of these families were very poor. In both cases, the head patriarch had died.
Right.
So both of these families, they were headed up by matriarchs. And, we're in a time before social security and all that. They've got to make their living any way they can.
You're in a lot of trouble.
You can convince the community that you've got some sort of power. You can make somebody fall in love with you. Just take this charm, which I'll sell you for however much. You've got a sick animal. I can come and help with that.
Yeah.
Which is all fine if it recovers.
You might just chance that every once in a
recover,
while as well.
you leave yourself open to an accusation that you actually did it in. It's a fine line between helping, being seen to have power for good and power for bad. And they were, there's no question they were doing some very questionable things. They were, they were finding children's teeth when they searched their house.
Sorry, I just missed that little bit. They were finding children's.
Almost certainly grave robbing.
Ah, right. Oh, yeah. Right.
And things from children were considered to be pure.
Yeah.
And purity is a charm against evil. You see.
Yeah.
So if you had a child's tooth, for example, wore it around your neck, it would ward off potentially evil, any evil wanted to get you. And James in demonology says as much himself, not about charms. He was against them. He was against anything that smacked of the occult. But he said, with regard to children, that they are pure. And that's why, in his opinion, they were expert witnesses when it came to witchcraft trials. Because they had this kind of sixth sense. Because they hadn't been corrupted by the world like adults.
Yeah.
They had this sixth sense when it came to evil.
Yeah. They could
By
see it.
evil, he means witchcraft.
Yeah.
So whereas children, say of under 9 years under 9, ordinarily they couldn't give evidence in court. They were considered too young to understand the oath, too young to understand the gravity of what they were doing.
Bad witnesses.
Except in witchcraft trials.
Right.
In witchcraft trials, the evidence of children who in any other trial would be inadmissible is admissible because of this power, if you like, that they have to detect evil. So, yes, you can admit the evidence of children in witchcraft trials, and that was catastrophic when it came to the Pendle Witch case. We'll get on to. So, yes, but they were definitely dabbling in, the occult, but at a very low, a low-grade level. They were dabbling in charms for love and to ward off evil and to
trying to make a few coins, not curse.
Fertility, probably. You want children here. Take this, or wear this, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
And cursing people on the road and making them feel frightened so that they give them something when they weren't going to. That kind of stuff.
Yeah. So they've been arrested then?
So they were arrested, and Roger Knoll decided that there was enough evidence to commit the ones who'd already been arrested to Lancaster Castle. So that's Alison and Alison's mother and Alison's grandmother. Grandmother was called she was called blanked Elizabeth Device, and she was known as Old Demdike, and she was along with Anne Whittle and her daughter Anne Redfern. They were taken to Lancaster Castle to await trial. Now this was the meeting on Trawden, the road at Trawden, took place in March 1612.
Yeah.
And the trials wouldn't take place until August, so they would have to wait at Lancaster Castle till then. Next thing we know is that there was a meeting at the home of the Device family,
Yeah.
Alison's family.
Yeah.
It was known as Malkin Tower. Makes it sound very grand. Somewhere, the exact location isn't known, but somewhere in the, Blacko in Lancashire, somewhere around there or towards Newchurch. That area.
Yeah.
And it sounds very grand, Malkin Tower, but it wasn't. It would undoubtedly have been a hovel. Of course. Why there are various arguments as to why it became known as Malkin Tower. One of which could actually have been a form of insult. It was probably the worst house in the area, and the locals, to mock it, called
it doesn't sound great, does it?
That's
Yeah.
one possibility,
Yeah.
But anyway, it had this name, and people got together on Good Friday, so a public holiday, but it's also a religious festival,
Yeah.
Good Friday. And they got together, people, one person from Gisborne, Janet Preston, who was subsequently tried as a witch at York, found guilty and hanged there. And obviously friends and family got together. We know they stole a sheep.
Yeah.
To feed everybody.
Yeah.
And they roasted it. Sheep stealing, capital offence.
I'm going to say it sounds. I thought it might be quite a serious crime. That
Have they ever tried for it? No. That's something you can actually get them on. It's much easier.
Seems like a bit more straightforward as well. Yeah.
But they're not interested in that.
Yeah.
They're only interested in witchcraft. So anyway, they steal the sheep, they roast it, feed everybody. And subsequently, news of this meeting gets out when it's over, and it reaches Roger Noel, the magistrate. By the time it reaches him, people are saying it was a witches' coven, when all the other witches of the area had got together at the house of this family, which were already in prison, waiting trial for witchcraft. Clearly it was a coven.
Must be.
And the order went out, arrest them, Most of them got away, but some were arrested. James Device, brother of Alison, he was arrested. And John Bulcock, who had roasted the sheep, he was arrested. And they were also taken to the castle.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what's interesting about the meeting is what James Device said about it in his statement. And before we go on to that, I should probably just talk a little bit about the name Device. It's Device.
Yeah.
That's how it's spelled in the account that's subsequently published a year later. They're all called, this family, Device.
Yeah.
Which is
it's an unusual name.
Yeah, it's an unusual surname.
Yeah.
Device. But what you've got to bear in mind is that the book was written by the clerk of the court, Thomas Potts. So he's in the courtroom and he's writing, right? And he writes what he hears.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when, say Alison in court, it always asks, what is your name?
Yeah.
What she probably said was Alison Davis. Which is Davis.
Alison Davis, yeah.
But he was from Northamptonshire.
Yeah.
He isn't tuned in to the Lancashire accent.
As soon as you put it in that strong Lancashire accent, especially East Lancashire.
Which was Davis.
Yeah.
Where she probably said Davis, but with a thick Lancashire accent. Davis. So anyway,
I bet you're
that's
right
an
on that.
aside. but
No, yeah, I like
I
that, yeah.
suspect their name was Davis. And of course, spelling wasn't standardized then.
No,
You'll get it in parish records.
yeah,
Names spelt completely differently
yeah,
from
yeah,
one document to the next, and it's the same person.
yeah, yeah,
That they're
yeah,
describing. People were illiterate. There's no way Alison would have been able to spell her own name. Even if they asked,
no,
how do you spell that? Would have been illiterate. She wouldn't have known how to
yeah,
spell it.
yeah, no
So
chance.
I think that's how device or Devis, as it's sometimes
Davis.
called, kind of came about, if you like.
Yeah,
But anyway, this meeting, James Device, in his account, says that the original purpose of the meeting was to name Alison's familiar.
right.
He says that in his confession, right?
Well,
Which,
confession. Yeah,
yeah, it's interesting because
yeah,
the meeting is later portrayed as a mass for the devil, a black mass,
yeah,
if
yeah.
you like, right?
On Good Friday.
And we've got this whole naming ceremony thing
Yeah,
going on as well. And Alice Nutter, she's put at this meeting, right? The
yeah,
Catholic, who's
yeah.
the yeoman farmer's wife. She's there. She's
Right,
identified as being there.
right. So I
What
wonder
is
why
she
she's there then.
doing there?
Yeah,
You know? And, some people say, well, she wasn't there. She was framed. But I don't think it's out of the question that she was there,
no,
particularly if you go down the road of Catholicism, right?
yeah,
So, Good Friday,
yeah,
important date in the religious calendar, right? There's a meeting. There's naming ceremony. Get rid of the familiar.
yeah,
Naming ceremony. Adult baptism wasn't unusual, but
right.
there are also other sacraments within the Catholic Church whereby
Yeah,
you take another name. You take on a saint's name.
right. Yeah,
Black Mass. Get rid of black. What are you left with?
mass.
Mass.
All right.
Right?
Yeah,
So if you put all those things together, a prominent Catholic being present, a naming ceremony, and a Mass on Good Friday,
yeah,
you've got a Catholic Mass at
yeah.
which there would have been a priest.
Right. Yeah.
Now, Alice
you're not going to
Nutter,
admit
we
to that
know,
if you're a
was
priest, are you?
related already to two Catholic priests who were executed. So there's a very good chance she knew other Catholic priests. And maybe that's why she's there. She's with them in some way. Or, priests needed to hide. Maybe they were hiding at Rough Lee. Maybe they're with
Yeah,
her
yeah.
and they went together. There's no way of knowing this, but
So I
there's
was
no
suggesting
way
that
it's a
perhaps
witch's cover.
this is to save them
Sorry?
from.
Yeah.
I
There's
was
no
suggesting
way
that
it's a
maybe this is
witch's
to
cover.
save them.
It's been made
Yeah,
into
no.
that. Right. And there's
Yeah.
also other rubbish which is said about this meeting that part of the meeting, the coven, was to obviously discuss what had happened with their relatives. That definitely would have happened, even if it was a mass.
Yeah,
Afterwards, people are going to talk about
of course.
these
Yeah,
people being in prison who they know
Naturally.
or related to.
yeah,
And then
yeah.
there's this suddenly, out of nowhere, there's this accusation that they had plotted to blow up Lancaster Castle, kill the governor, Thomas Covell, and rescue
Yeah.
their relatives,
Right.
right, with gunpowder. One
Mm-hmm.
minute, they're the poorest of the poor, begging
Yeah.
on the streets. The next minute, they're accused of having enough resources, money, whatever, to be able to purchase or get hold of enough gunpowder to blow up Lancaster Castle.
Yeah.
Garbage.
Doesn't sound very realistic,
Obviously,
does
it's
it?
garbage.
Yeah.
And not only that, but they're witches. Why do they need gunpowder? If we're
Yeah,
going
yeah.
down that road, if we're going down the road that they're
Yeah.
witches, What's the
Yeah.
gunpowder for?
Yeah, you don't need
You know,
it.
just
Just get on your broom.
calm them all to sleep.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
You know,
You're in.
but
It's easy.
yeah. So it's rubbish. Clearly,
I
what
often
is
think that
being said
when they're talking about
this
the way they used to
meeting.
check for witches with a Duncan and things like that, I often think if you were a witch, you would just not allow yourself to get dunked, would you? You wouldn't just drown.
You know, yeah. But of
There's
course,
just no way.
there was a get out of jail free card. You know, in a way that there was a belief because they had this dilemma. They had the dilemma. They knew the dilemma because if you've arrested a witch, and one minute they've got all this power to fly through the sky, and the next minute they can't escape from a cell.
Yeah.
You've got a dilemma there, you know. So they said they got around with it by basically saying, well, once they're under the authority of the state, which is headed by the king, who is king by divine right,
Yeah. Yeah.
their power is nullified in a way. They can't use it anymore. You know,
Yeah.
again, it's very spurious, but they've got to come up with something,
That's your way around
or it
it.
doesn't make any sense. You know.
Yeah.
So
And when you talk about witchcraft and powers and magic, you can say anything, can't you? Because everything makes sense.
So anyway, they this meeting that they're said to have said that, and James's confession, you know, you can speculate how they got it, you know, because most of them don't confess. There are some confessions. He's one of them. When he went in to this, he was a robust agricultural labourer. He was about, I think he was 17, something like that. When he was in court, he couldn't even stand up, you know, and he could barely talk.
Yeah.
Now, it's true the dungeons are an absolutely appalling place if that's where they were kept, and it's possible he was simply so sick by the time he got to trial that he was in too bad a way. There's no, again, you could never prove any of this one way or the other in those.
No.
But one of the favourite interrogation techniques at the time wasn't torture in the sense that they would have identified it, because Magna Carta 1215 bans torture, not allowed to use it.
Yeah, right.
But that controlled secular law. There was also church law.
Yeah.
And church law, ironically, didn't ban torture at the time.
Yeah, right.
And so if you could prosecute somebody and bring in God, ironically,
then you can do whatever.
You were kind of good. You know, Guy Fawkes was put on the rack and tortured because he tried to kill the king, who was king by divine right.
Yeah, and it's tediously.
But the witches were tried under secular law, so Magna Carta rules. You can't torture them.
All right. I thought you were going to say the opposite. Right, got you.
But torture at that time was viewed as something that inflicted physical pain.
Yeah.
So, for example, you hurt, punch somebody, do something appalling to them that inflicts physical pain, torture.
Yeah.
But there were other things that they could do that in that time wouldn't be defined as torture, but would now. No question it would now. Because it didn't inflict physical pain. So the favourite was sleep deprivation.
Yeah.
You keep somebody awake for long enough, they will admit anything.
Yeah, definitely.
Ultimately.
Yeah.
And that wasn't defined as torture because you weren't punching them.
Yeah.
You weren't
You don't need to touch them, do you?
inflicting physical pain on them. I'm sure it hurts like hell.
Yeah.
But it wasn't
Well, person
defined
A
as
isn't doing
torture.
it to
That was
person
the
B.
favourite. But we don't know. He may very well have been subjected to that, or a number of other things that they did of a similar nature.
Can call it likely, can't
But
we?
either way, he did confess. But at the trial, so there were confessions, and then at the trial there was star witness. This is where Janet comes into it.
Yeah.
Janet was about 9. Janet Janet, you know. She was about 9. Janet Device. She was the younger sister of James and Alison.
Yeah.
Her mother was in court.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, of course, she's too young. She shouldn't be giving evidence.
No.
But they've all read demonology, the magistrates, and they know James says children in witchcraft trials can give evidence, so they bring her in. And she's clearly been primed. You know, they probably treated her really well, probably, I don't know, gave her food she'd never even imagined existed, all that, you know. No, we don't know, but you can see, you know, how they might have got her to like them, you know.
Yeah.
And she goes in and she starts telling stories. She's 9. She's telling stories. You know, she's seen her flying through the air, and once a frog jumped out of the fireplace. Well, big deal. They lived in a hovel. Of course, there were frogs in it.
Yeah.
It's meaningless unless you're in a witchcraft trial, when suddenly the frog becomes another familiar.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, so she went in, and the court, we're told, the judge, the court, they listen, amazed at the wonderful evidence that this young girl is they take it in hook, line and sinker.
Yeah.
And her statement and the confessions kill them.
Yeah.
And so old Demdike had died in the dungeons before she ever got to trial. She was about 80. So she never got to trial, but 9 did. Well, actually, more than 9 did, but 9 were found guilty and hanged. Yeah. And they were hanged the day after their trial. And they were charged, incidentally, with 1 count of laming John Law, the guy who fell over in the first place.
Yeah.
But to that had been added 17 counts of murder by witchcraft. People who 18 years before had died of a heart attack, it was now their fault. Killing horses, killing cows, turning milk sour, turning beer bad. You know, the witches' Sabbath was mentioned. And, the whole thing snowballed way out of control.
Yeah.
And they were found guilty. They were hanged the day after the trial, on the 20th of August, 1612, on Golgotha Hill, which is the other side of the town from Lancaster Castle. It's the highest point.
Yeah.
It's roughly, if you know Lancaster, it's roughly where Williamson's Park is now. You got the Ashton Memorial, which you see from the motorway, which is a white building with a green dome.
Yeah.
Somewhere around there is where they were hanged.
Yeah, right.
But there were those other 2 trials. The Samlesbury witches were tried at the same time.
So
3 women.
The other witches, the Samlesbury, and did he say St Helens?
Yeah.
Were they just lumped in, or were they apparently connected?
Sorry?
Were they like apparently connected to the Pendle, or was it lumped in all together? No,
separate trial. Completely separate trial.
Yeah.
So the Samlesbury witches, from Samlesbury, near Preston.
Preston, yeah.
Accused by a girl called Grace Sowerbutts of bewitching, you know, using witchcraft. And to cut a very long story short, she's a child witness as well.
All right.
But in court, she cracks. And she suddenly admits that she's been put up to it.
Yeah.
By a Catholic priest called Christopher Southworth. One of the accused in the dock was Margaret Southworth. The Southworth family split at the Reformation, like many families did. Some went Protestant, others remained Catholic.
Yeah.
And suddenly, it's not a witchcraft trial at all. It's allegedly an attempt by a Catholic priest to discredit and get rid of 3 good Protestant women. It's a show trial. They probably knew before they even started what the verdict would be. But you've got to have the trial to get the message out there.
To get the direction. Yeah.
That's thrown out. And then Isabel Roby, she's completely separate to everybody.
Right.
Her crime was to give the boyfriend of her daughter a stomachache. And she didn't like him. And he used an accusation of witchcraft basically to get rid of her. And it worked.
A stomachache. A stomachache.
Yeah.
Can't get my head around that.
So, but then what they do is really unusual. Afterwards, they publish it. In 1613, the clerk of the court, Thomas Potts, writes a book. It's called The Wonderful Discovery of Witches in the County of Lancaster. And it reports everything that happened, allegedly.
Yeah.
So he starts by an account of the Pendle Witches. And there's one person this book is aimed at, the king.
Right.
Because we're in Lancashire. You can do all this stuff, but how's the king ever going to know? Because he's miles away, and he's not really looking this way.
He's not interested in the world.
They've got to publish it, and you send him a copy, right?
Yes.
And of course he's interested because it's about witchcraft, so he'll be reading it.
Yeah.
And he'll read, wow, they've had a very large witchcraft trial in Lancashire, the largest witchcraft trial in history, which it was at that time.
Yeah.
It was at 1612, this was the largest witchcraft trial in British legal history.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
20 people accused, 10 people hanged.
Yeah.
Huge. It was only surpassed in 1692 by the Salem witchcraft trials.
Right.
In Massachusetts, which were a British trial. Because at that time, Massachusetts was a British colony. Yeah. So that was a British court, British judge, British law. So that's the largest witchcraft trial in British legal history now. But this remains second to it.
Yeah. Wow.
So anyway, he starts reading. They've had a massive witchcraft trial in Lancashire. 10 people hanged. He'd be impressed by that. Then he carries on reading. And then he reads about the Samlesbury witches. Witches who had been found not to be witches because it was actually the plot of a evil Catholic priest. Mm-hmm. Now, what you've got to bear in mind here is witchcraft wasn't his only paranoia, James.
Right.
He was also paranoid about Catholics. Because in 1605, a group of Catholics tried to blow him up in the Houses of Parliament, the Gunpowder Plot.
Oh, yeah. All right,
Catholicism and Catholics are right there with witches in his mind. So he
time together.
Wow. Oh, well, it's a good job they found that out. Catholic priests trying to discredit, 3 good Protestant women. Good for them.
Yeah.
What's the other thing he finds out?
Go on.
The Gunpowder Plot.
Yeah.
Right? The so-called plot to blow up Lancaster Castle.
Yeah.
Do you know who owned Lancaster Castle in 1612?
No.
Have a wild guess.
Sorry, I missed the question, actually.
Have a wild guess.
James?
Is the Duke of Lancaster. Every king and every queen since 1399 has been the Duke of Lancaster and owned Lancaster Castle. Right. So suddenly, from nowhere...
That's attack on him as again.
We've got a plot, a gunpowder plot, to blow up his castle. It's a direct gunpowder plot against him. It's garbage.
Yeah. Again.
But it sounds brilliant in a book. You've got the hat trick. Witches, Catholics, gunpowder plot. The whole thing's a put-up job. I'm not saying that initial meeting happened, but once they get hold of that, the authority, the people, Roger Knoll, they run with it because they know they can get the king's attention and impress him and get advancement and boost their careers and all that. And they're all in on it. The judge, they're all in on it. And then they publish it and he reads it and he would be impressed. So that really is kind of at the heart of what all this was about.
Yeah. Wow. I'm just trying to soak that in. You think about sort of politics in the modern world and how people play things off against one another. Still, we see it all the time, don't we? And then even back then, it's no different, is it?
People will always, particularly if the king or whoever, whatever ruler is obsessed or interested, they'll latch onto it and because that's how you get noticed by someone.
Yeah. In a sick way, it's the great idea, isn't it, to write that book and and pull him back in.
Yeah. We
Yeah,
call them witch hunts, but they're not always about witches.
yeah, yeah,
You know,
yeah, yeah.
the
Witch hunts are
McCarthy
far
era,
from gone as well,
and
are they now?
the whole thing about trying to root out supposed communists in the
Yeah,
US, and
yeah,
the McCarthy witch hunts. They're
yeah,
not about witches,
yeah.
are they?
No, no, yeah. But there's that phrase still
Yeah,
rolling through. Oh, that's it. It's such a. I keep saying it's such a great story and things like that, but it's obviously I don't mean that in an odd way. It's a very intriguing story, isn't it?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's fascinating, and just the odd things like the peddler dropping and having a stroke just in that moment. It's like
Yeah,
just
if he just
unbelievable. And
walked
the
off,
poor girl,
yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Or,
yeah. And
10
like you said,
minutes
on another day,
later,
maybe he
15
did.
minutes later, 20 minutes later.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and no one would know the difference. But
Yeah.
then the guilt of the poor girl who thinks, "Oh my God, I am a witch," possibly doesn't she?
Yeah,
Oh my
I'm
God, I've done it.
absolutely
I have.
certain she thought she'd done it,
Yeah, yeah,
because, it was so, the timing was so there.
yeah, yeah. I guess it's a little bit like in the modern world, us getting annoyed with someone and going, "Oh, just drop dead,"
Yeah,
and then they do.
yeah. You'd feel
Yeah,
bad though, but you really wouldn't
you'd
think
still
you'd
feel
done
that
it.
now. Yeah, no,
You'd
it'd just be a
recognize
small
it
part
as
of you.
bad timing.
Yeah,
You wouldn't think you had some power to make
no,
that happen.
no, no.
But yeah, that time, yeah,
Yeah, and then the power of one person in King James. He says that children are star witnesses. Then children are star witnesses because they're pure,
yeah,
and without that, it changes everything, doesn't it?
yeah.
Yeah,
It does,
um,
and again, if you look at the Salem witchcraft trials, it was the evidence of children that
yeah,
led to
yeah,
those people being
yeah.
executed too.
All
And
right,
there's
yeah,
a link between the two, because
right, okay,
the authorities at Salem were not comfortable about child witnesses,
all right,
so they wanted to know if it was admissible. And there was an
yeah,
expert in the area called Cotton Mather, uh, and he was descended from a man called Richard Mather,
yeah,
who came from Lancashire.
right,
And so through that connection, he knew about the
yeah,
Pendle witchcraft trials.
yeah, yeah.
And he said, yes, there's a precedent, you know. So
It's been done.
because he said that, they admitted the evidence of the children, and that led to even more deaths in Salem than there were in
Yeah,
Lancashire.
I know you said it a moment
Later,
ago, but how many
Cotton
deaths
Mather
was Salem? Sorry.
retracted. He said, I shouldn't have done
Oh,
that, but
really?
it was too late. Yeah.
Yeah, too late. It's good. It's all good and well there, retracting it,
Yeah.
but yeah. How many people died in Salem? Sorry, I know you said it a moment ago, but
Oh, I can't remember the exact number. It's many more.
oh, I thought you said it
I'd
before.
have to
Sorry.
Google
Yeah,
that.
no
I
worries.
can't remember.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
no worries. Well, we can Google it afterwards. I know we've gone on a little bit longer than advertised to you. I'm all right with that.
Yes,
If
mate.
you are, I really wanted to ask you about if that's all right with you. You talked before about so moving away from the Pendle Witch trials now, obviously. You've talked about like the little people in history, but more particularly like the graffiti that they leave behind. I just wondered if you could give us a few examples of that and explain to us why you think it's so important.
Well, I think graffiti is really important in some instances because, well, there are many motivations for doing it.
Yeah,
From, boredom to rebellion to
yeah,
an artistic statement
yeah,
to making a point, love, hate, there's a whole raft of
yeah,
stuff.
yeah,
But sometimes it gives you something that most other historic documents don't give you,
yeah,
which is a snapshot of what a person thought or felt at a precise moment in
yeah,
time.
yeah.
Because there aren't many documents that do that
No,
historically. Now, of course, people can turn on their camera and have a rant, which
yeah,
is an immediate, but if you go historically, you don't have that. And so sometimes somebody will be so affected by something that's just happened, that they'll scroll something on a wall, or they'll, carve it on a wall, and they're really, and that's rare. Because people talk about diaries, and somebody, some people like Pepys were avid diarists.
Yeah.
But even then, it's not immediate. Even if you did it every day, right? Something happened to you at, say, 10 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
And you write it up at 10 o'clock at night. That's giving you 12 hours to think about it.
It's more a reflection,
on it.
Yeah.
Decide that, I was right, they were wrong. Whereas sometimes graffiti really is immediate. Just happen, bang. And that's rare.
Yeah.
For that. So that's, and, some of it's beautiful. There's some really, really, and I'm talking about medieval stuff. I'm not talking about, not talking about Banksy,
No.
I'm talking about medieval stuff where they've carved it. And you go to the Tower of London. You go to some of the towers in there where political or religious prisoners were kept who were literate. And the graffiti is beautiful because they had time to do it, let's be honest. And some of it is not carved in, but it's carved in relief. So it stands proud. So they carved the background back, and it stands in relief like a frieze almost. And there's some brilliant graffiti. Carlisle Castle, which is carved in relief. You go in medieval churches, and you have to look for it. I spend a lot of my time staring at walls. People wonder what I'm doing because they're looking at the ceiling.
He's staring at the walls again.
I've looked at the ceiling. I've looked at. Then I start looking at the walls, and I'm basically staring at a blank wall, just going straight down all around the columns. Just looking for graffiti that people, sometimes priests would graffiti in their own churches. It's not sacrilegious. It's messages. Some of it's religious, or you get a lot sometimes around the altars of medieval churches, which is votive. People asking for stuff, or leaving little mementos of themselves. They might carve a coat of arms, which is their coat of arms, or whatever. Or sometimes as a memorial, you get that too, because a lot of people couldn't afford a tombstone or a grave, so they sometimes go somewhere. It could be a church, and they draw something. A lot of it, as you said, a lot of people were illiterate, so a lot of it's pictorial rather than word. And you can't. A lot of the time, you can't put a motive to it. You can just kind of guess what it might mean. But it's certainly some kind of memorial of them. And in many cases, the only memorial they've got. Even, I was here. What does that mean? If you actually think about it, what does that mean? Does it mean I was here in this church like you are? Or in this castle like you are, or on the top of this mountain? You get a lot of mountains where people have climbed to the top and they've left some graffiti in the stone. I was here. Or is it, I was here. I had a life, just like you do.
I existed.
This is my memorial in a way, because, like I say, many people who left graffiti don't have another memorial. That's it, So I find it interesting, and I go around collecting it.
Yeah. So when you were speaking before, I thought you got the phrase "history is written by the winners," so that's why it's good to hear, or in some way find or surmise information from other people. But actually, history is also written by the writers, except for those pictorial bits of graffiti and things like that you find, aren't they? That's the only thing that people have got.
It goes way back, Pompeii, I don't know if you've been to Pompeii or Herculaneum. There's graffiti there, Roman graffiti that got preserved because it was covered in ash, after the the eruption, and it's
Yeah, yeah,
political. There's an election, right? And you've got political slogans of
right, yeah,
on the walls and stuff like that, and some of anti-Christian, some of it.
yeah,
So yeah, there's some really interesting, and again, it depends what you class as graffiti.
yeah,
Graffiti is writing on a wall. You
yeah,
know, so do you count Neolithic cave painting?
yeah. That's something
It
else that I was going to say. Yeah,
conforms
yeah,
to the definition. It's
yeah.
right. It's drawing on a wall.
It's drawing on a wall. Yeah, it's there, isn't it?
So there's a big debate about what graffiti actually is,
Right.
other than the usual.
Because meanings change over time, don't they? As well. Today you
Yeah,
see some graffiti on the wall and you think, oh, did you really need to do that?
yeah.
But then we don't think that for graffiti from the past, do we? Like I said,
No,
even in the church, which you wouldn't imagine somebody graffitiing in a church in today's
no.
world, would you?
Graffiti
But
only became a social nuisance, classed as a social nuisance, relatively recently. I think it was only a crime from 1850.
all right. So historically, that's really recent, isn't it? Yeah,
Yeah, people used to
yeah,
graffiti their own houses as a form of decoration
yeah,
because there was no
yeah.
wallpaper. So
A
you go
pre-wallpaper.
Tudor
Yeah,
houses and the like, they used to have a blank wall. People who obviously
yeah,
have money, means, and they'd get some
yeah,
artists to write favorite passages from the Bible or poetry, piece of
yeah, yeah,
Shakespeare, whatever,
yeah.
to
Of course.
decorate their own walls.
Yeah, yeah,
And then when they got
yeah.
fed up with that, they paint over it and get them to do
Get
another
someone
one.
else to get it back in again. Yeah,
But it's still graffiti.
yeah. Of course it is. Yeah, but well, I nearly said, but purposeful, but kind of purposeful in a way, isn't it?
I
As well.
don't,
But
I don't
I think
condone
anyone would say
graffiti.
that did it.
Nothing would
No.
wind me up more than somebody coming and writing, I was here on my front door. But
Yeah,
historic graffiti, I find really interesting.
it's
And of
helpful
course,
to
one of
us
the interesting things
historically.
is, when does graffiti become interesting? Is it date
Yeah,
or is it who did it?
yeah,
So if a school desk was found in Memphis with
yeah,
Elvis was here on it, it's
yeah,
not
yeah,
particularly old, but it'd go in a museum because of who
yeah,
did it.
yeah, yeah.
You
Of
know.
course, yeah,
But then you've got other stuff which is hundreds of years old. Nobody knows who did it, but it's interesting because of how old it was.
yeah, yeah. Definitely, yeah. And like I say, there might be something to surmise sort of mixed into it as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, fantastic. That's great. Um, I've got one more question for you. I think you know this one's on its way.
Yeah, I only
Um,
saw it 4 hours ago, so
oh,
I've
I'm
not
so
had much
sorry.
time to think about it, to be honest. Um, yeah.
Can I'll just, if people have listened already, then they know what it is, but I'll just ask it for the sake of asking it. If you could speak a sentence that everyone in the world would hear, what would it be?
In other words, what would a message I would want to put out there that I think
Precisely.
is true. It might not necessarily be the most important thing in the world, but something that I think is true. That kind of
Yeah,
idea.
absolutely. Yeah, whatever you want,
All right.
anything you want. It's your sentence.
Yep. Well, I'm a big music fan, right?
Yeah.
I actually do talks about music as well as history
Oh,
because
Brill.
it
All right.
interests me. But I'm a big rock and roll fan, right?
Brill. Yeah.
50s, early 60s is my
Yeah.
thing. So I suppose my sentence of the night is that, and this, some people will argue with this. That's the whole point. Um, The Sound of Fury, the LP by Billy Fury, is the greatest rock and roll album ever recorded, bar none.
Now then, that's gone out there then. Up for debate. I must admit, I've not listened to that one, so you've given me a job to do there.
That is outrageous.
I'm so sorry.
You have not listened to the greatest record ever recorded.
I really like rock music as well, so I'll listen to it and then I'll let you know. Maybe if you come back on in the future, we could talk about music instead as a
Yeah,
part two. That'd be lovely.
yeah.
Oh, brilliant. Thank you very much, Colin.
No,
I really appreciate you joining me. It's a big thing for me. And thank you very much.
Great, I've enjoyed it, yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Thanks for inviting
All
me.
right. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
Take care.
I know.